So hi, this is Richard and Craig here, and as you can probably tell, this week we're lead educators in cars getting coffee.
Tea actually.
Well, in Craig's case, tea, yes. And so we're here with our weekly feedback video for week 6. So yeah, we've reached the end of the course, Craig.
That's right. I just want you to let you know that we're not driving. Right?
Oh,
Rowan's driving the car, Katrina's behind the camera, we're just sitting in the back seat, okay?
Safely in the back seat, doing a lap of Monash. So as we go, you might be able to look out the window, the back window, and see this lovely campus that we're on in Clayton, Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah.
So once again, there's been some really great feedback this week, really good conversations happening.
And it's clear that so many people have gotten a lot out of it. And what was interesting was that many people have done it a second time, have gotten a lot out of it.
Yes.
There was a lot of talk about letting go, and letting go of the course.
And is it bad to be attached to an online course?
Yeah, an online mindfulness course at that. So we're not sure. We're going to work on that one. We'll come back to you about that. But anyway, but we're glad that so many people have gotten so much out of it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of content in this course. So to do it a second time and maybe go into a little bit further into some of the practices or some of the extra readings and that kind of stuff has been really quite good for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of questions about meditation this week. A lot have come up. So some people ask for tips about staying awake. This sleepiness being a common obstacle when people are meditating.
Meditating while standing on one foot helps, but if you're not going to do that.
On the edge of a cliff, perhaps.
Yes, that's right. It can be useful to just notice if a bit tired, sometimes just doing something a little bit active before you meditate.
Yes.
Just for that wave of sleep to pass. And a bit of, a glass of water and a bit of cool water on the face, and that always helps a bit. Taking care of the posture too. If you're sort of slouching in a chair and so on, then it makes it easy to go to sleep, especially if after food or lying down. So as a general rule, sitting up, do something active, some water.
A lot of classic teachings on mindfulness and meditation generally talk about working with the extremes of agitation and sleepiness. So just working with it, using those things that you're talking about is really important. It's important to stay awake, obviously, and not to just practice being half asleep. Yeah,
when your head gets to 45 degrees, you stop practicing mindfulness.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. Likewise, some people talked about being bored towards the end of the longer practices, which is an interesting thing. We've gone from 5 to 10 to 20 minutes, so people starting to clock watch a little bit at the end of their practices. And of course, that's a really good opportunity just to notice where's your attention in those moments. I mean, maybe it's gone away from the breath or away from the body or whatever you're focusing on, and perhaps you might find if you were to check that it's somehow in the future, thinking about when's this going to be over? How much longer do we have to go? And of course, in those moments, are you practicing mindfulness or something that's maybe easily mistaken for mindfulness?
And if boredom arises, frustration arises, impatience arises, like any other experience, just learning to observe that, let it be, let it rise, let it fall, is just part of the practice. So in a sense, just learning to be patient with impatience.
Yes, that's right, yeah. And related to that, somebody talked about being in a bit of a trance or being so deeply relaxed they weren't even sure if they were practicing mindfulness anymore at the end of the meditation. So
yes, you'd have to sort of ask that person about what was happening. Was it a very deep meditation, or was it going into a little bit of a twilighty kind of sleep state? And if there remains a connection, a presence, connection with the senses, an awareness of self, of environment, etc., then probably remaining mindful, but perhaps in a very deep, detached kind of way. But if sort of all of a sudden realise, where have I been for the last 5 or 10 minutes, then probably something else has been happening.
Yeah, and good to remember as well that mindfulness is about tuning in and being more present and more aware of what's happening in the moment rather than less. So if you're getting into a sort of sleepy state, that might not be quite what we're going for. Right? Lots of people working with tension and pain. Craig, anything you want to say about that?
Well, just because we're practicing mindfulness meditation doesn't mean everything's going to be easy, and uncomfortable physical and emotional states can arise like they can in any other part of life. But mindfulness gives a way to us to be present to those things, but without amplifying them. But we shouldn't necessarily assume that mindfulness is always going to be easy. No. Some days are going to be tricky. But it's a lot of it about the observing, the non-attachment, non-reactivity, the acceptance, the openness, the self-compassion. All of these things, cultivating the attitude of mindfulness is in some ways even more important than the attention bit.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Some other comments were around just becoming more aware of when people are in default mode, and of course that awareness is so important. One of the first things that people really start to notice is, an increase in awareness and becoming much more aware of what's happening inside themselves and around them. So that's a very important thing.
Yes, that's right. Sometimes we can misunderstand or misinterpret progress as regress when and it's not just for an individual person practicing mindfulness, it's also important for researchers who sometimes don't understand that as well and can interpret something as a negative finding when it's actually a positive finding. It's a step in the path to being more aware.
It's becoming more aware of the mess that's going on in our minds sometimes. It's almost like we walk around in the dark sometimes, and then with mindfulness we light a little lantern and then we notice, whoa, it's a bit of a mess in here. And sometimes people come in the second week of a course or say that it's a little bit like, mindfulness is making them worse somehow, but maybe they've actually just become more aware of what's happening.
Yes. Yep. There was also some comments about some days being difficult, and the meditation is not always easy. And I think if we don't have an expectation that's always going to be the same, that also helps. A little bit like the weather. Some days are clear and sunny and beautiful, and some days are overcast, and some days are just really blowy.
So, in wrapping up, we'd just like to thank all of the learners for their great, really engaging well with the content and sharing their ideas and asking questions, and it's certainly been great to get the feedback from Sherelle and Jen each week around what's being talked about. And
and don't assume that at the end of a 6-week course, well, that's the end of mindfulness, because. And even the theory, even if we've got a good grip of that, the practice doesn't stop there. It's really, if we're new to it, it's just the beginning. So see this course as a springboard for developing more mindfulness in your life, so that a month from now, a year from now, a decade from now, hopefully more mindful than we were before.
Yeah, and of course it's a practice, so like anything, and the more we practice it, the easier it gets, the better we get at it. But never really master it, do you?
No.
It's just something that we continue to deepen as we go.
Yeah, and if we are sitting there thinking to ourselves, how much I've got mindfulness mastered, it's probably a good indication that we haven't.
So thank you to the team, the people behind the scenes, Rowan and Kat, and all of the team at FutureLearn.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you to Monash for supporting this, Campus Community Division, Office of the Provost Chancellor of Learning and Teaching.
Yes. So we've had a tremendous amount of support, and it's really the participation, the engagement that all the learners bring to the program that makes it worthwhile for us. And so we're happy to keep doing it and keep improving it, hopefully, when it runs again later on this year.
Yes.
And so thank you all very much. And I don't know about you, I'm just about ready for a cup of tea.
Yeah, or coffee.
Yeah, or coffee, as the case may be.
Good. Green tea or black tea, Craig?
Yeah, I like Earl Grey, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
A bergamot.
Yeah.
Yeah.